Hello everyone, I'm Martin McCain.
And I'm Martina McCain.
We are the McCain duo, and we're very excited to host Dr. Courtney Jones, who's the Professor of Trumpet at Florida Atlantic University. He is an amazing trumpeter, performs all over the place, conductor, and we know that you're going to have a blast with this interview.
Enjoy! Trumpet extraordinaire, conductor, and just like a really cool guy. So we are really excited to interview you today, Courtney. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Now tell our audience, where are you?
So I am currently enjoying the inclement weather of South Florida and Boca Raton, where I reside. We are currently in hurricane season, which is March through October, I believe. And throughout the day, you wake up, it sounds really beautiful. You hear the birds, you see the sunshine, and then all of a sudden it switches into Jumanji.
Oh.
And so this is where I'm dealing with right now in my balcony in South Florida.
Oh man! Well, we hope Jumanji doesn't come during the interview. So
you know what? I hope it doesn't as well.
Yeah. So let's jump in then.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to ask me?
Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, tell us, can you tell us about your musical journey, your background, how you started on trumpet? Was trumpet your first instrument?
Sure. So, it was piano, and I taught myself how to play. I am the last of three kids, and my brothers and sisters play piano. We were always grew up in the house with music. And my brothers and sisters played, but then they didn't do it, once they got older. And so, those old piano books that had the fingering, the hands and the fingerings, and then the keyboard itself. So I literally taught myself how to play.
Wow.
See, this finger goes to that. And then having synesthesia, I didn't know at the time, but hearing types of music and seeing colors, I began to play pieces of music that I heard off the television set, like the Toys R Us kid song, da da do dee da, and I would go back to the piano and then hear certain things, and then over the years, that's what I did. And I played for a couple years, and let's just say my piano teacher and I didn't get along as I got older. I stopped doing that. But then after that, I went to trumpet, my 6th grade year, and then that's where it began,
Wow. I didn't know you were a closet piano player.
Oh, that sounds great on piano.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I dabble a little thing or two.
Okay.
So when did you know that you wanted to have a career in music?
Well, no, it's crazy, man. I didn't want to do music at all. Music kind of just came naturally for me. I get, my older brothers and sisters, they did the sports, and by the time I was born, I couldn't do anything in the sports because after breaking 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 bones in their body combined, mom and dad are like, you know what, we're just going to let you do non-hurtful things.
Oh.
And so, but I was like, okay, because my minor is business marketing and management. Mm-hmm. But I always did music, did all state. I was first year in all county, all district, and then going to high school, and never really thought about doing that. And so when I got into college, I was actually there for psych major with a minor in business. But then my first semester there, I was like, yeah, as a major, I'm good, And then I was thinking, well, let me maybe try to do music. And so I did music, and I just wanted to. Then I was like, well, let me just teach high school. Maybe I can just do, my undergrad and teach high school, because I really appreciate all my high school teachers and my middle school directors and whatnot. And so I started doing that, and I did a dual major in performance and education with a minor in business marketing and management.
Nice.
And so I put that on hold. Again, you go through college and you start to realize, you start to get older, you start to mature, and you start to say, well, maybe this is not for me. And I put music on hold, finished my minor, and I started working full-time for a retail company as a associate and co-manager and then district manager. And then I did that, and then I realized that something was missing in my life. I would go to these concerts, I would find this energy. Now, mind you, I was making good money, but I was not being fulfilled, and I didn't touch my horn for almost 2.5 years.
Wow.
And so after that, I came back and I decided that this is what I wanted to do. And I was like, okay, I'm going to teach high school, and that's all I want to do. And my teacher kind of challenged me. He was like, well, I know you want to teach, you say you want to do music education, but have you thought about performing? And I'm like, well, that's what I'm doing. He's like, no, I'm actually performing as a career. And, I didn't really think about it. And then next thing you know, did NTC, my junior and senior year, thank you, making the semifinals for that. And then that kind of just, thank you, Nina. And that kind of just jump-started my obsession with performance.
Wow.
And so that's how I kind of got into it, and then started realizing yes, you can play in an ensemble setting, but as a soloist, you can choose the music that you want to play, and being that I'm a versatile player, both classical and contemporary and jazz, it was very easy for me to dwell into each one of those genres, right? And those, well, not necessarily genres, those styles of music. One of my mentors being Wynton Marsalis, and then hearing him going back and forth between classical and jazz. And I'm thinking, well, if he can do it, I can identify with him as a person of color. And it's like, well, I think I can do it too. And so that's how I kind of got into that whole performing aspect, and then my master's, and then definitely when I moved out to Los Angeles.
Wow.
Absolutely.
I love how Courtney just dropped in there as a virtuoso player. Let's go back to that.
You know.
Just in case y'all didn't know. So tell us about mentorship. I think that's really important for our audience. You were in a completely different path and you had this skill, but maybe you wouldn't have, gone that direction if nobody kind of steered you, if you didn't have mentors pouring into your life. So tell us about the importance of mentors, and then what the mentors specifically did for you that changed your career path.
Absolutely. Much like, those mentors, you have a caveat of those who are the antithesis of that, right? Especially as an undergrad. And, when I was, doing my career, and, we all go through these things in life, right? Not only just figuring ourselves out, but figuring out who we are and what are we going to do as a career path. And there was an individual during my undergrad that basically encouraged me to quit my major. And, versus saying, hey, I know you're dealing with some things right now. Have you thought about maybe lightening your load a little bit, and such and such. And they didn't necessarily do that. It was more so, this might not be for you. And it made me feel some sort of way, right? But then I also had those mentors, going back to answer your question, that said, listen, I understand that you need a break, and look at it as a break. Don't look at it as you're quitting school. Look at it as a break. Yes, Nina, thank you, please. I'm so sorry.
You gotta be on the video. Just go ahead and put her on there.
No, she's a diva right now, and she sees another dog.
Oh.
But who said, stay on your horn, and let's continue to do what we need to do, right? And so I end up doing that, and they always stayed in contact with me. Hey, how you doing? What's going on with you? At that time we were getting ready. We were transitioning with new, trumpet instructor, and they said, listen, we have a new instructor coming in. Are you still on your horn? Are you still going out? And it made me feel like I was appreciated, right, amongst that other individual. Now, when I got back, that other individual was no longer teaching at that university and or associated with that university, but the importance of mentorships is imperative, because it helps those of us, especially undergrad or graduate students, who may be going through a tough time and may not necessarily see the muddy water, to allow those individuals to help steer you in that right direction. And it's imperative to have a mentor that you can convey, your frustrations to and whatnot, And so it's very, very important. Excuse me 1 second. My Mac thing fell out of my computer.
Oh, do it.
1 second. I don't want to lose you guys. It just kind of lost you. Okay, there we go. Now we got some power. And here we go. Yeah, so mentorship is very, very important, because you might come across a situation like one of my professors, Mark Williams, who, was getting ready for NTC, and I was like, Doc, I don't think I can do this, and blah, blah. He was like, Mr. Jones, shut up. You made it. You've done the work. Now you go out there and you win this competition. And, you need that encouragement. And, and even though, what's the saying, I'm going to send you as a sheep amongst the wolves. And sometimes you can be that sheep that gets through that path, and you sometimes need to see your difficulties in order to get past that. So mentorship is very, 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 very important.
Yeah.
That is, yeah.
Absolutely. I wanted to go back also, like when we were talking about undergrad, that's one thing that you and I share is like the minor in marketing. And
Sure.
I mean, doing it at the time, I didn't realize how important that was going to be. Like, because now like everyone's talking about it in the music business. How do you feel like that's helped you in your career having that minor in your undergrad?
Oh, it's whoo, it's a godsend, because it allows you to think outside the proverbial box, right? When it comes to marketing yourself as an artist, as a musician, as a person to finance their own lifestyle, and having supplemental support to keep the lights on and food on the table, right? And knowing how to navigate those waters, not only as a musician, but as someone within the business area. Because when you do marketing, the first thing people see is a visual image, right?
Right.
In order to market your product, in order to sell your product, you have to market it. Even though the product may be good or bad, but if the marketing of said product is great, then people would still buy your product, even though some of them may return it, but they still bought your product and you got the money, right? I'm saying that as an analogy to market yourself so that you can go forth and continue. And especially when I moved to Los Angeles, when you're going to a large city where there's 10,000 trumpet players and everybody's trying to do the same thing that you're trying to do, and you're the newest person, and the lowest person on the totem pole, how do you come into an already made situation to get your name out there, right? So marketing, networking, being able to carry yourself, being able to, if the gig starts at 11 o'clock, you're dropping them there, you're like walking into the place 9:45. You know what I mean? Or even earlier than that. Early, if you're early, you're on time. If you're late, you've lost a gig. And I think a lot of people forget those things. And not saying that, because I was always on, I had to learn too. I didn't have all the answers, but I also had to learn, why it's important to leave the house early, or why it's important to check the car the night before and get everything prepared, so that all you got to do is wake up, make your coffee, and get to the car.
Right.
And then at the same time, knowing how to read a contract, right? When I was doing film and television recording, there was a movie that I did that, and I saw the check and it was great. But had I gone back, I would have asked to be written in, versus getting that one residual, and so, but that comes with experience. And since then, I was able to negotiate certain things, especially with Glee and Criminal Minds and things of that nature. So, marketing and knowing those tools to how to market yourself and how to network is imperative, especially as a musician, and utilizing technology in the process of that. Obviously, ipso facto, what we're dealing with today. I was very fortunate to have my teachers, to say, hey, make sure you have an EPK, make sure you have your CV always on in your email somewhere, like in a folder, just in case you need to print it out and give it to somebody. Make sure you have your business cards. Make sure that you have like some type of electronic source to showcase what you're doing, right? Before TikTok, before Instagram, there was MySpace, right?
Right.
Social. I know, right? I took you back on that.
Yeah, MySpace music.
I had one too, and so there were certain components to where you can market yourself to help build your career. And in the process of that, you're networking. And from one person, you go to another person, Next thing you know, you don't necessarily see the footsteps you've already taken to get to the point where you already are.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that's great stuff, man.
So, we have a wide range of listeners, and a lot of what we do is educational, and we're all educators as well. I like the fact that you mentioned you're a multi-genre artist, and there might be some listeners out there that have a lot of skills and are wondering how do they market that, or how do they even fit into sort of traditional academia? As most of us are like classical track or jazz track. How were you able to marry the two in school, or was that something you did afterwards?
No, sure. That is a great question. And I wish, excuse me, we had at least a week to talk about this. For me, I've never seen, and I could probably get a lot of flack from this, but I don't believe in genre. I believe in style of music, right? There's, I mean, there are many different styles of music, and the way that I approach it is there are two ways you can feel music: on beats 1 and 3, or 2 and 4, right? You still have to have a good sound when you play. You still have to be able to read music, and you still have to articulate that style in order to get that information across. It's like learning a new language when you're going to a new country. You don't have to be a pro at that language to speak it, but if you understand a little bit of the language, so when you go in, and you see the people and like, hey, hello, how are you doing? Excuse me, how much is this? Excuse me, where's the bathroom? So the longer that you're in that country and you're learning that language, the more familiar you become with it. And I see music just like that as well. Same thing with classical and or jazz or contemporary or whatever. And so in addition to that, my teachers were the same thing. One of my teachers, I go back to him, Dr. Williams, he was, I think he was principal in the Navy band. And he was always talked about fundamentals, always talk about building your foundation, always building your foundation. And depending on what happens after that, that's up to you. But if your foundation is there, then you can go in any direction, right? And one day I was walking to go to my lesson, and I heard like this high playing like Latin music. And I'm getting closer to the door, like just screaming trumpet stuff. And I get in the door, and there's Dr. Williams, and it was quiet. I was like, Doc, like what CD was that? And he looked at me and he says, Mr. Jones, that was no CD. I was playing Latin jazz. And I was like, what? He's like, yes. And so he was like, just because he was in the Navy band, he had to play many different styles. And at the same time, he was also making money, by playing those different styles, right? He wasn't secluding himself and saying, well, I only play this and that's that. Well, if that's the only thing that you do, then good luck. I mean, right now, we are in not just now, but I would say in the last 20, 30, 40 years, you look at, the industry, the music industry, right? When you would graduate high school and you could win a gig in a symphony orchestra and stay there, right? Where you didn't necessarily have, jazz in the orchestra or contemporary or pop music in the orchestra. But you look at things that are happening now, you listen to, LA Phil, and then they're having their LA Pops or the Hollywood Bowl during the season, where they'll bring in these players, and you ask yourself why? Because now the consumer is looking at, well, yeah, we're not always going to go to this concert, so how do we keep people in the seats? So you expand your repertoire, right? And if you're able to dwell into that, then you can continue to fake it till you make it, or learn how to play those styles of music so that you become a triple threat.
Yeah.
Right? And for me, in order to do that well, you got to listen. You got to listen to many different styles. You got to listen to how are they playing that lick, or how does Basie sound like Basie, or how does Duke Ellington sound like Duke Ellington? Because you have Duke Ellington, you have Count Basie. Yes, there are two jazz bands, but they have two separate styles, right? When you have a Basie laid back, groove versus, Duke's like, internal, well, not internal, but internal and higher tertiary chordal concept that kind of happens when you're playing. Vibrato versus, just straight tones, all that stuff. And when you're playing certain pieces and people look, well, how were you able to do that? Because I did my homework,
right.
I listened to what was going on. And your sound is something that defines you. And I believe one thing that I teach my students is that first and foremost, we have your foundation first. We build that first. And then depending on what you want to do after that, the world is your stage, but you have to have a good sound, and you have to understand the fundamental concept of what you're doing in order to execute said style.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
I think
that's awesome.
So many students, I mean, we all teach, they don't seem to understand the value of fundamentals in all styles. I always tell my students, all music uses the same harmonies, okay? They just put different color notes, different rhythms to change it. And it's so important that you know fundamentals to do anything, really. So thank you, Doc.
Absolutely. And if I may also just interject, and in addition to learning those styles, you're expanding your repertoire. You're expanding your own personal arsenal, you know? And you look at the repertoire in our by our, I mean the trumpet pedagogy, you know, and the different colors. I'm glad you said colors, because there are many shades of blue. You know, there's sky blue, there's aqua blue, there's dark blue, there's light blue, right? But it's still blue, but they're different variants of it. It's the same concept of executing a style of music, you know, or playing, you know, a phrase and allowing the last note to taper just a little bit. Do I want wavy vibrato, or do I want it to kind of dissipate over time, right? And our experiences allow us, and experiences in ensemble playing, experiences in solo playing, and chamber, you know, intimate chamber playing, allows us to execute that type of color depending on what we come from and what we've been doing. So it's very, very, very important. And this will be the last thing I say about it. And the thing about it is that if you play, you know, different colors and different styles, you know, you may be the one that they always call back, you know, and that was something that, knock on wood, that I was very fortunate to kind of have a career at LA, because I was able to play many different styles, you know, on the same session, you know, and one of the guys is a buddy of mine. He's like, I don't understand. You just got through playing piccolo on this thing. We asked you to do this and you sounded completely different. I said, well, in my mind, I was thinking of Maurice Andre when I was playing this pick lick. And then now I'm playing flugelhorn. I'm thinking of only Clark Terry. You know what I'm saying? You know, and how he's smoky and how he's done. Or, you know, if it's something very high on the flugel, I'm thinking of Chuck Mangione and how he was able to approach that, you know, and in keeping that all cohesive while building my own product.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's some good stuff.
Yeah.
So Courtney, we're all educators here, and a question we always like to ask is like, what advice maybe do you give your students or our listeners who are up and coming in the field, and it's like, what do I do next, or what should I be doing with myself? Like, if you only had like 1 or 2 points, what would you tell them?
Do everything and nothing.
Oh, that's a good one.
And I say that because, you know, as a musician, you know, if you want to, you know, teach collegiately or primary or secondary education, I mean, or give lessons, whatever you want to do, you know, especially if music is going to be your source of income, research everything that's available to you, right? Knowing how to market yourself, going into a new city, nobody knows you. Okay, well, how are you going to make money? Start reaching out to the local schools, you know, start seeing what's happening here. Look at the local churches. Offer your services free of charge, you know, so that you can get into the community, you know, and at the same time, you are staying on your craft. You're always being creative and you're always staying motivated, right? But if you don't have that motivation, or you don't have the humbleness to say, hey, what do I need to do to make this happen? Then it's going to be a very difficult road for you. And if you're in addition, if you're not willing to look at different styles and whatnot, okay, and that's cool too. Nothing, I'm not negating that that's good or bad, but you know, good luck. You know, I remember there was a situation where they needed what is that thing? Black Girls Rock, the Beyonce thing. Mm-hmm. And a friend of mine had reached out to me, and this is after I did the recording with Rihanna. And a friend of mine had reached out to me and said, hey, do you have any females of color that play trumpet, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, boom. I sent them this person, you know, and that person didn't end up doing it because they were like, well, it's jazz and I don't play jazz. And I'm like, half of this stuff is just playing in tune with the person to your left and to the right. Right. And I asked him, I said, you turned it down? Yeah, 'cause I don't play jazz. And I'm like, what? You weren't going to improvise. I mean, you just had to play a staff. Da 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 da, pow. It's the same thing in Arbans, you know, da 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 dee, da da da. You're just reading a syncopated rhythm, right? And then when I asked the buddy of mine, I was like, so just curious, what was it? What was the rep? Oh, we were just playing whole notes and half notes and a couple staffs. And I said, just curious, how much was that? Mm-hmm. And without saying the number, let's just say that person paid their rent for 9 months.
Wow.
On that one. Well, it was 2. You know, and that person missed out on that opportunity because they already shot themselves in the foot, right? Mm-hmm. And they were there struggling, you know, and I'm like, music is music. You know, it's either feel-good music or not feel good music, right? It's good or bad music. It doesn't matter if it's classical or jazz. Like, it's music that can uplift you. So I would say do everything and nothing. Say yes to everything and then figure it out later if you don't know what you're doing. Or if you truly know, like, this is not my thing, you can pass it on, fine, you know? But just don't just shut yourself off from other opportunities, especially as a musician, just because, oh, it's jazz and I don't play that, or this is legit, that's not legit. Listen, I loathe that word, like legit versus non-legit. No, music is music.
Right.
That's it. That is it. It all speaks to everybody's soul, right? So the question is, what are you going to do to help execute that and to act as a conduit to provide that healing knowledge, right, via your instrument, you know, via the fingers, the voice, or, you know, the horn.
Absolutely.
And the bank doesn't know if it's legit or not legit, so
Right.
take the check.
Right.
So we'll close off with this. What with, you know, when you're not dealing with a pandemic and you're not teaching or you're not on tour, like, what do you like to do for fun outside of music?
Well, I love coffee. I roast my own beans. You know, I have my dog here. I love to kind of decompress by reading books. You know, I love puzzles, but mainly I love to get out. As you notice, I have my Ribinas around. I love to be outside. You know, that helps bring clarity for me, you know, amongst all the stuff that we go through, being locked up in a practice room with a metronome device, going back and forth over and over for over one measure for like hours, you know, and to get out of that, to find a recharge, I love to get outside while reading and enjoying my coffee. That helps me. That kind of keeps it going. Because if I didn't have that, oh, and then also I love, you know, my recent addition, my dog, you know, who was.
Come on, give him a flash. Give her a flash. Put it on the screen for the dog lovers out there. Like, drum roll. It's Nina.
There she is.
This is my little one, Nina Simone, named after one of my favorite singers.
Yeah.
And she actually helped me calm things down, because I would work so much or be in the practice room so much before tour, you know, and then I realized, man, I'm in my office way too much, or I'm preparing way too much, right? And then once I got her, it's like, I need to finish by this time because I got something to do. And that's basically making sure that she doesn't, you know, go number one or number two in the house. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, so that's what I do. And that's the best thing, because you got to have your me time. That's very important. If you don't have your me time, there's no way, especially, and we all know this as educators, you know, there's no way that we can provide that mentorship, because our vessel is empty. Our energy is empty, Absolutely. You know? And if we have to have our me time to recharge, whether it's coffee, whether it's reading a book, whether it's walking outside, and also working out. I'm an avid cyclist, you know, so that you can provide that information for our students, and not just for our students, but as a musician, you know, because it's hard, you know, to be on all the time, and she also knows that. So yeah, that's what I do.
That's cool.
Awesome. Thank you so much for speaking with our audience. Like, this was amazing.
Yeah, tell them where they can find you.
Okay, so you can find me on my website. I have an active website at www.cjones, C-J-O-N-E-S, trumpet, one word, cjonestrumpet.com. And you can also find me on the Instagrams. One of the things that I've been doing during this staycation, and not just now, but I've done it a while, but I didn't have enough time as we do now. I've been posting a lot of videos, and one of my current projects is recording the 50 Mancini trumpet quartets, which is like 200 plus parts, right? And so I've been doing that, doing a video each week, and doing some collabs with friends of mine, and just staying creative. And last time and how long have we been in this staycation? What, 3 months?
Too long.
Or something like that? Yeah. Well, you know, but staying creative and staying in that allows the time to pass. So that's how you can find me. And if you enjoy dogs, you enjoy coffee, and trumpet bits, you can find me there.
That's awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
This was amazing.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.